Hey, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining us on today's AMA. Our guest today is Sam Wilcoxon from Ask Lorem. We were just having a really interesting conversation on the hoops and the perks of raising money. So Ask Lorem is this fantastic company that works sort of like as a bridge between B2B, between companies and freelancers on a pre-filtered list. I'm sure I'm explaining this very badly, Sam, but thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely, happy to be here. I'm Sam Wilcoxon. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Ask Lorem. We're a startup based in New York City. We've been around for about 2 years, and happy to be here.
Awesome. So, as you might know, this is an AMA session. So ideally, we want people who are watching us on the YouTube stream, who are following us on the Slack channel, to ask any questions, and then use this opportunity to ask Sam about his business progress. I've prepared some questions on my own around the fundraising experience and so on. So I'll get started with that. But everybody, just feel free to jump in as soon as you have something to ask. Obviously, go check Ask Lorem and don't ask what it is. Okay, Sam. So, the first thing we were talking about was your round. You guys have raised what we're calling a pre-seed and a seed round, $3.6 million total.
Yep.
So my first question, which is I'm translating a question I get a lot, is where were you when you raised these rounds? Where were you in terms of product revenue when you raised your pre-seed, and then now that you recently raised your seed round?
Sure. Yes, I mean, I think kind of taking it back a step to kind of tell our story a little bit. Essentially, we started off building. So we started off building a product and going the Bootstrapped route, and we did that for about 8 months, and then kind of we got it to a place where we felt like we were ready to fundraise, and so we actually went out and really relied a lot on our network to get meetings with VCs, and we essentially completely struck out. We were not able. We kind of approached these meetings as, hey, we're going to come in there, we're going to tell them what we're doing, and we're so excited, they'll be excited, and as we leave the meeting, they're going to cut a check, and we're going to walk out victorious. And that was extremely naive and also extremely unsuccessful. And so after about 2 or 3 months of lots of slow and fast denials, we kind of took a step back and said, whoa, what are we doing? We must be doing something wrong here, because this surely is not working. And so that's actually when we decided to apply to Techstars. So we applied to the Techstars Accelerator. We ended up going up to Boston and doing that accelerator. And essentially, what we kind of realized is that we were playing a game that we didn't know the rules of. So raising money felt like this complicated thing that we didn't actually have the skills or knowledge to do well, yet we were expected to do it well. And so we really went up to Techstars in order to learn the rules of the game that we were actually playing. And that ended up being much more successful. So in the Techstars program, it's 3 months. And really kind of from the start, they're trying to teach you like how to properly raise money. What is kind of, what is the formula to raise money? And that proved much more effective for us. And so essentially what that looked like kind of the next time around was, rather than going into these meetings and expecting to have them write us a check on the spot, it was much more about how do we build relationships with this venture crowd over time, such that then when we actually say, now we're fundraising, there's kind of this pre-existing relationship and a lot of data points that they've kind of seen over time, such that they trust us, they have kind of invested in our story, and they're in a much better position to say, yeah, I actually really want to bet on Sam and Charlie and the team for the next 10 years because I trust them and I think they're going to be fantastic. And so really it was, Techstars was huge for us, kind of understanding how to raise money. So yeah, we went through the Techstars program. They give you $100K at the start of the program, and by the end of the program, actually on demo day, you get up on stage, everybody gives their 5-minute pitch, and we actually received our first term sheet at 6 a.m. on demo day. So right before we went on stage, we got our first term sheet, and then we're able to close that first $1 million as kind of a pre-seed in combination with 100K. Kind of in the week of right after demo day. And so that was kind of that first round.
Insane. So a bunch of follow-up questions from this. Positioning myself in the place where a lot of these companies are, probably the audience watching, is how do you bootstrap? So how did you guys manage to bootstrap? Being in New York, obviously an expensive city. Did you keep a day job? Did you do consulting on the side? How did you manage to do that for you and the rest of the team?
Yeah, so essentially, my story is I graduated college from Brown doing computer science and went on to work at 2 startups here in New York as one of kind of the early software hires for both of those companies. So one was PeopleCo, building a tech talent search engine, and the next one was X.AI, building an AI personal assistant that schedules meetings for you. And so for both of those companies, I really saw it as, how do I join an early team? How do I take notes and learn as much as I can from these founders? And got to work with fantastic teams, fantastic founders, working on really interesting problems, and really get thrown into the deep end as an engineer. So upskilling on the engineering side, but also just how do you run a team? How does a startup really work from the inside? And so essentially, it was about 2.5 years of kind of doing that as the day job. And all the while, I had actually been working on side projects nights and weekends with my now co-founder, Charlie. And he was working at startups as well in New York. And so it was kind of, those were our day jobs. And then nights and weekends, we would get together in my room. I had wall-to-ceiling whiteboards kind of going around my entire room. And we had this thing, we called it the Wall of Pain. And it was this Google Doc where for years we were just throwing ideas in there, and then each week we would pick one out. He's a designer and more of a business mind. I'm more of a product and technologist. We'd bring one out, we'd prototype it, we'd build it, we'd show it to our friends, anybody would listen, and essentially kill the idea. Just over and over again, because we're trying to find what is the idea that's going to get us so excited. What is the idea that's going to get us to quit our day jobs? And so we did that. I mean, we literally did that for 2.5 years. And we came up with a lot of bad ideas and killed a lot of bad ideas. And I think we also just kind of learned how to work together and got those repetitions in, right? Kind of put in that practice. And so eventually when it came time, Lorem was literally an idea on that list. And we pulled it off the list, and he had a background as a freelancer. I have had a background as a freelancer as well. His parents are small business owners. And so when we actually first started working on Lorem, we kind of looked at the website builder space. We looked at Squarespace, Shopify, WordPress, and we actually saw an opportunity to build a better Squarespace, to build a better WordPress. And that's actually the kind of first idea that we went off to try to solve. And that is the idea we actually quit our jobs for, and that's the idea we actually worked on for the first 6 months. But essentially, to kind of answer your original question, we saved money like you wouldn't believe during our times at our day jobs, such that when we quit, we knew we would have at least a year of runway, personal runway, sitting in the bank. And so, yeah, that's kind of how we gave ourselves the time to, gave ourselves the time to build the product before needing to raise money.
Great, and people don't believe me when I tell them this, but it's really hard to raise money with just the idea, right? This validation process, this scratching the ideas or testing it out. At least in my experience, investors expect you to have done that by the time you get to their meeting. I've seen it. It's not completely false. I've seen companies raise money idea stage, but it's rare. And usually it's founders that have a lot of experience before, and then investors are buying because they know them or because they have a good track record.
Yeah, capital intensive businesses where you kind of have to, it's kind of the you have to have money before doing it.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we really took the kind of, how do we find the right idea? How do we prove that this is the right idea before we're going to raise money, but before we're going to quit our day jobs, before we're going to dive into this and spend the next 10 years of our life on this? Like, let's prove that this is actually a good idea. And so essentially, I mean, kind of the story to fast forward a little bit is we worked on that idea for 6 months and we showed it to hundreds of people, and the response over and over again was, hey, this is kind of mediocre, but what I would actually prefer you to do is help me with my Squarespace, help me with my Shopify, help me with my MailChimp, my HubSpot, my Google Analytics. Help me use all these tools. Don't build me yet another tool. And so that's when we kind of took a step back and we said, look, there's, look at the exponential rise in DIY and SaaS software targeted at the small business owner. You talk about like the MarTech 5000. There are over 5,000 products, software products, targeted at this customer to make their life easier. Why would we want to build 5,001? Why would we want to compete against people? No, we're going to ride their wave. We're going to, we're going to be the human layer of the SMB tech stack. And so that's kind of when it clicked for us. So again, to fast forward to finally answer your question, we went into Techstars. We did a bunch of different things to raise money successfully at the end of Techstars rather than unsuccessfully before Techstars. And so I think the key things that we did were, one, invest in relationships. So that meant essentially meeting with VCs, not under the context of we're fundraising right now. Actually, very explicitly, we are not fundraising right now. We just want to get to know you. And essentially with those meetings, it's kind of pitching them the vision, talking a little bit about our traction, but really just kind of getting to know them, and then putting them on what we, kind of the mentor update list. And so that's an email list. We must have had, 50 plus names on there, and we would send them an email every 2 weeks with our traction and kind of asks and thoughts and kind of what we had learned in those last 2 weeks. And I'm sure they hated us by the 12th of this, 12th email here. Like, you should definitely not be sending it every 2 weeks. That was overkill. But really what we were doing is kind of putting the dots on the line. And we were super transparent. Like, if we would miss our numbers, like we would set a goal for, hey, here's how much here's how many dollars we're going to make in the next 2 weeks. And if we missed it, we'd say we missed it. And that was advice we got on, like, essentially, you actually want to show them that you're missing so that they trust you when you make it. Because if your numbers just look perfect all the time, I don't believe that. Nobody looks perfect. That's ridiculous. And so it's really about that trust. And it's also just like getting them to invest in the story, right? They've talked to me once, they get these emails, they scan my emails, maybe they send way to go team once back to me. They're investing in me, they're investing in my story, and that's when, later on, when we kind of, press the we're fundraising button, now we have a much more captive audience, right? And so that's the same list that then we were able to, closer to demo day, say, hey, we're fundraising now. And you kind of have those pre-existing relationships at that point. So I think that was one big thing. Two, when we decided to let's start fundraising, for us it was all about, we were doing an equity round, so not a convertible note on this round. So kind of the game you're playing there is that if it's an equity round, you don't get the money unless you raise all the money. Okay. So you can't just close early on 300K or we didn't get to $1 million, but can you still give us the money? You got to get there. And so essentially the round is either oversubscribed or not happening. Like, either you've got to your number or it's not happening. And so I think the way we thought about that is how do we kind of rack up what we described as conditional commitments to make that number over the number we were planning to raise, which was $1 million,
Mm-hmm.
and then kind of, because then, fine, then we're good. And turning those over. And so really what that was for us was we kind of went out and talked to a ton of angels and a ton of smaller VCs, and particularly VCs that are, like, there's VCs that will lead around and there's VCs that are quote unquote followers. And we actually kind of went after the angels and the followers first in order to create momentum and pressure for the leads to flip. And so kind of the way we did that is going to an angel or a follower VC and saying, look, we really like you guys. We'd really like for you to invest. Like, I know you typically invest 50K or 250K or whatever it may be. What's standing between you and making that decision? And kind of, that feels a little bit unconventional of like asking the VC, why won't you invest? But really what we do is try to kind of pull that out of them. And so they'd say, oh, well, it's really important that you get a really great, lead VC. And we'd be like, okay, fantastic. So assuming we'll do that, will you invest? And they'd say, well, no, we also want the valuation to be, below 6 million post. Great, fantastic. What other conditions do you have? And we would actually get a list of, we would keep asking until they had nothing left for us. And we would rack up a list of maybe 6 to 10 things that were in between them and making the decision. And we'd say, cool, fantastic. So assuming we do all of those crazy things that you just asked for, which, could be, oh, you got to hire the, VP of, blah, blah, blah from Yahoo. Like, they could be crazy asks that they want, but just racking up that list, getting to the end of it and saying, cool. So assuming we do all those things, will you invest? Great. And so you kind of get them to conditionally commit. And sure, you can back out. You don't have to write anything down. We're not expecting a term sheet, but just say yes. And so essentially then taking those amounts and doing that over and over again until we got to, call it about 500, then going to some of the lead VCs and saying, hey, look, we're already at 500 and demo day is in 3 days. This round is going to get done. So if you want to be in this round, you need to jump in. And kind of creating that, call it FOMO or call it momentum to get that lead VC to actually flip to a yes. And essentially, that's what we were able to do by demo day morning, is getting that lead VC to commit 500. That means we're going, now we have our $1 million, and then going back to this group and saying, hey guys, this round is oversubscribed. We actually haven't done all the 7 things that you asked for, but we have the $1 million here. We have this amazing lead. Do you guys still want to be a part of this? And every single person said yes. And you kind of watch their conditions fade away very quickly in a very interesting way. And so I think for us, it was really kind of, how do you just get over that $1 million? And by the end of demo day, we had 1.7 committed. So there's just such a difference between, like, VCs are trying to get in deals that are getting done, right? And so really just trying to get it over the line of the $1 million, and then from there, figuring out how to get it fully done and kind of, term sheets and signed and wires and all that.
I think this is insane advice, man. Thanks for sharing. I just so I can sort of match this with the story you were just telling us about the product. Where was the product at this point? So where was your product as demo day? Was it the Lorem that it is today? Was it still the Squarespace replacement?
Yeah, it was the Lorem it is today, but it was, we were doing about $10,000 a month in gross transactions, and our cut is, 20%. So about $2,000 a month in revenue.
So that's an insane reference, and I mean that's an insanely useful reference. I hope for everybody. Product build, post accelerator, which is this validation, I think, and I think a fantastic strategy on how to get those commitments. I'm assuming your problem slide was, I'm imagining your pitch deck, and I'm assuming your problem slide goes somewhere along the lines of the struggle it is to find a freelancer on freelancer.com or Upwork or mind you, whatever one of those platforms, because it is a painful experience. Is that the replacement, that the platforms you're trying to replace?
Yeah, I mean, so really, this was kind of another insight that we had on kind of the first fundraise. We tried to talk to VCs like they were product people. And so we would pitch them all the features and why our product was better than other people's. And that they're not product people.
They're not.
VCs. And so if you talk to them like product people, if you build your slide deck like it's a product and you sell the features, you're not going to get them excited. And so really we pitched them on the macro trends around our ecosystem. And so we told them, look, we have very little traction. We have a crappy prototype, but we're chasing this enormous problem. And really our slide deck looks like, hey, there's these two macro trends going on. Look at the DIY and that space, the DIY and SaaS space for SMBs, and then look at the freelancer economy and look at the trends and look how 33% of the US workforce has tried freelance in the last year. Look at the growth in the gig economy and that type of stuff. And so we really centered it around, there are these crazy tailwinds that are these waves that we're going to ride, and the timing is now. Very little about what our product did, how our traction was. I don't think a single one of the VCs who invested actually used the product.
I'm sure my investors have not used my product either, and that's really I think that's the case for most of them, and I agree. It's more than those larger trends. Running out of time, but I had one last question for you, which was your background as an engineer versus your role now as a CEO. Like, how much time do you still have left to code? How much are you involved in the product itself versus just the company route?
Yeah, that's been the biggest one of the biggest growing up moments for both my co-founder and I, is kind of going from the people who do the work to we've hired this awesome team, let's empower them to do the work. And so I actually promised him about a month ago that I would no longer code, and I can safely say I have not coded in the last month. So we've hired an awesome team, and they're better programmers than I, and I've tried to be extremely intentional about actually leaving the room when they start talking about coding and architecture, because I know I want to chat, but it's not my place anymore.
Yeah, there's no. I don't code. I'm not an engineer, but at some point I've felt that when I got more disconnected from the product, because there's sometimes too many people in the room, and so it's one thing you have to learn when you have to just leave them to it and just trust their thoughts. Man, last question, one from the audience that just came in, and I want to address it. So, are you planning, where do you go from now? I know that you solve bridging between analytics, integrations to Squarespace and so on. Are you planning to expanding on other freelancer services, or where is the company going after this?
Yeah, we've really focused on the kind of help you build a website, help you fix your website, help you optimize your website. That is kind of the core vertical, and we've been intentionally vertical because you have to have the supply side to do this work. So kind of going horizontal makes it, if you support everything, it makes it tough. But yeah, we do see a future in that kind of handling more digital marketing and more design and kind of all the offshoots of the website, but really focus on the website to start.
Amazing. Man, thanks a lot for your time. Thanks a lot for joining us today. If there's anything I can answer, I can return the favor for being with us today. I'm happy to. Excited to see where you guys go, and happy we could connect.
Cool. Thank you so much. Really appreciate the time.
Thanks a lot, Simon. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you everybody next week. Bye.
Bye.